Howdy folks, Chief Meteorologist Nick Lilly here, taking a look at your tropical update for August 21st of 2020. This is the afternoon edition, for those of you that caught the early morning version of this, brought to you by the folks over there at Pine Belt Gutters and Remodeling. We got Laura now. That happened early this morning, and we're still waiting on Marco to show up. Nana after that, which that next wave isn't looking quite as robust as it was originally appearing, which is some good news. So we've got 14 hanging out over here. We've got Laura hanging out back here, and right now the hurricane hunters are actually flying through Laura, trying to figure out exactly where the center of this thing is, because there was some indication on satellite a little bit earlier that it may have been a little further off to the south than originally anticipated. Wind at 45, gusting to 60, now 40 miles off to the east of Antigua. Moving to the west at 17 miles an hour. It's still trucking west at a pretty good clip. The idea is that this will eventually get into the Gulf of Mexico after scraping nearly every single island on its way as a Category 1 hurricane, and then make landfall somewhere across parts of Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, or Florida coastline. Right now, the forecast cone does take it south of the southern tip of Florida, but does catch the Keys. Tropical depression number 14, 255 miles off to the southeast of Cozumel, Mexico, wind at 35, gusting to 45. This is slated to be a tropical storm at any point. Matter of fact, I'm surprised it's taken this long. Truth be told, this is going to slide over the northern fringe of the Yucatan before getting into the Gulf of Mexico and making a run at becoming a hurricane. It's going to have a fair amount of shear to deal with. The interesting thing is, yes, these do overlap now in the Gulf of Mexico, and pretty much everybody from Brownsville all the way back around to Panama City, Florida, are in a cone of some sort as we head through the next couple of days between Tuesday and Monday night late and Wednesday afternoon. So if you live along the Gulf Coast, the northern Gulf Coast, the northwestern Gulf Coast, the western Gulf Coast, please pay very close attention to the forecast over the next couple of days. These forecast cones are likely to shift a little bit, given the fact that we're going to have two tropical systems very close to one another, and there is some semblance of a little bit of a dance that they're going to end up doing with each other, because they're going to impact where each one goes. The final guess on where that may be is quite literally at this point a guess. It's not a forecast, because there are a lot of moving parts that we don't fully understand how they're going to interact with each other at this point, given the fact that it's in the Gulf of Mexico and not the open Atlantic or Pacific. All right. Next, wave up is a 20 to 30% chance of development. This is the one that a couple of days ago a lot of the models were picking up and saying, oh, it'll be a tropical storm by the time it gets past the Cabo Verde Islands. And it's still struggling to kind of hold itself together, which is some good news. So looking at the water vapor, you can see that we've got a couple of things happening in here. We still have a fair amount of troughiness here. We kind of break over that, and then we come back around in here, and then we're looping back around like that. There's not a very good environment in here for Laura, and there's not a very good environment right here for number 14. There's just a little too much shearing on the northern side. Now, there's not that much dry air, so it's not like it's entraining any dry air at this point, but there is a little bit of shear on the northerly side. For Laura, it's got shear and dry air. Not a ton, but there's enough there to kind of mess with it over the next little bit. The difference is as Laura continues to move this away, it becomes very favorable for development toward the Bahamas, Cuba, and the southern tip of Florida. And by the time it gets into the Gulf of Mexico, this little area of low pressure that's developed will move out. 14 will move through, and that'll kind of lay the way for whatever's in here with Laura to kind of move wherever it decides to start hooking to the right and moving north, depending on where the big pressure decides to take it. The spaghetti plots for 14, we'll take these out through Monday and Tuesday. There's still a reasonable amount of spread here. I'll be honest, there's a lot that we still need to figure out with this. How strong it's going to be is the number one thing. The stronger it is, the more likely that it's going to get picked up a little bit more by the trough that we were just talking about that's in here. And it's not going to pull it. That was a little bit too exaggerated. That is too much. But it's going to kind of yank at it a little bit more. It'll probably try and stay on maybe the east side of the cone as it moves off to the north. On the flip side, Laura, you can see most of these are pretty close together through Monday. And even as we head through Tuesday of next week, there's a little more spread than there's been. I mean, we've got a pretty decent kind of width in here where 24 hours ago the thought was, well, most of them had them clustered kind of right in here. So interesting to see that this is now getting pulled a little back further to the west. It'll have to continue to be monitored in terms of where it is and how it develops over the next 24 to 48 hours, because that's eventually, I think, going to dictate exactly how far off to the west it gets before pushing off to the north. We've got a couple of deterministic models, 700 millibar moisture, 850 vorticity. Looking at the GFS showing Laura in here, 14 over here as we head through Sunday night. We can ride this out through Monday and into Tuesday. And notice this one takes 14 as a pretty weak saw system into the southern tip of Florida. And it brings Laura around and actually makes it a decently organized tropical storm, maybe a hurricane, and pushes that all the way out and toward Houston and Lake Charles. So the GFS showing that. That's the American model. We can look at the European model, which, as we take this through Sunday, Monday, and into Tuesday, does kind of the same thing. Remember yesterday and the day before I said, it's interesting that we're getting to the same point between these two models two different ways. And then Laura is a little more robust out here into the open waters of the Gulf of Mexico. But it's interesting that the American and the European models, while they don't do exactly the same thing with 14 in this area, we end up in the same place anyway with 14. And it does show that Laura makes landfall instead of a little further off to the west. It moves it in a little further off to the east. The European also has another wave back in behind that, try and sneak into the Gulf of Mexico, which is perhaps worth watching as well. And then we kind of calm things down as we head through the weekend of next week. So there's a look at your tropical update for August 21st of 2020, the PM edition, brought to you by the folks over there at Pine Belt Gutters and Remodeling.